Hello, it's me, that guy that said that Sean Strickland was going to submit Alex Pereira in the first round, and I'm here to tell you guys why I believe that Alex Pereira is going to defeat Israel Adesanya in their matchup that's coming up soon, and I also believe that he's going to KO Adesanya within the first 3 rounds of their contest. Of course, that's the matchup coming up next. I really want to see it take place because I believe he's the guy to do it. If there's any guy who can beat Israel Adesanya at his game in the UFC, it's Alex Pereira. He's done it before in kickboxing, and I think he's about to do it again. Coming up soon, I believe it will take place in November. Of course, Israel Adesanya defeated Jared Cannonier in the main event of UFC 276. He outpointed him over the 5 rounds, won 4 of the rounds. I definitely gave the 3rd round to Jared Cannonier, but either way, Israel Adesanya won that contest, didn't really take too much damage. He did take some big shots, and I made a video about that on my 2nd channel, the MMA Guru Clips, where I broke down all of the big shots that Jared Cannonier landed on Israel Adesanya and basically said, hey, if Jared Cannonier is landing these clean blows on Israel Adesanya, I reckon that Alex Pereira is going to land them, and not only land them, but KO Israel Adesanya if he does land them. Of course, Alex Pereira also fought at UFC 276. He sent Sean Strickland to the Shadow Realm, and after both of their fights, when he was in the crowd, Alex Pereira sitting there watching Israel Adesanya, Adesanya used his really cool and funny and original line of "I'll leave him frozen like Elsa," which was such a great line. I'm so glad he said it multiple times in the build-up to the fight and also after the fight as well. It's such a good line. It's not cringe at all. What a great line from him. Yay! I'm 12 and I like that line. Either way, Alex Pereira, Israel Adesanya, is going to take place in November, I reckon, with the co-main event or even main event of maybe Alexander Volkanovski versus Charles Oliveira. That's what I believe is going to be taking place next. There's a bunch of cards that already have main events coming up before them. Maybe it'll take place a bit sooner. Who knows? Israel Adesanya took no damage. Alex Pereira took 0 damage as well. Maybe Adesanya's shins are a bit sore from checking kicks and landing kicks of his own and stuff like that. But I believe Alex Pereira is going to beat him. And I think that he's going to wait and fight until Volkanovski can be on the card as well. Israel Adesanya, that is, in November towards the end of this year. I reckon Pereira's got that one in the bag. Pereira has got that one in the bag. I'll start pronouncing his name correctly here. I think he's going to KO Israel Adesanya. I made a 2nd channel video. I broke down some of the moments in Israel Adesanya versus Jared Cannonier where Cannonier was landing shots on Israel Adesanya wide open. And Cannonier was landing big punches throughout their fight. And if Pereira lands those shots, if Pereira lands those shots, he's going to KO Israel Adesanya. If he can KO him in big gloves over at kickboxing, he's going to be able to do it in MMA with 4-ounce gloves that do nothing but protect your knuckles when you throw blows. I think he's going to be able to deal with the leg kicks at range. If there's anyone in the division that can do that, it's him. He can deal with the leg kicks. He can move out the way of them. He can check some of them as well. He can land his own leg kicks on Israel Adesanya. He landed a few of his own leg kicks in their fight at kickboxing as well. In the first fight, they were going back and forth on points. In the second fight, Israel Adesanya tried to be more aggressive. He had some success landing some good shots on Alex Pereira and rocking him a little bit, but then Pereira regained himself, recomposed himself, and went on to KO Israel Adesanya in their second fight badly as the fight went on. And I feel like it's going to happen again. There's many reasons. First of all, Cannonier is 38 years of age. He started fighting in general when he was in his mid-20s, and he was a heavyweight. He moved down. He's beat okay competition, I guess, to get towards a title shot, and that was just way too close for me. If Israel Adesanya schooled Cannonier and beat him the way he said he wanted to, maybe I wouldn't even be having this conversation right now, but he didn't. He played at range, he went tit for tat, and if he does that against Pereira, there's too many opportunities for him. The MMA Guru Clips, once this video is over, go and check it out. Big shots were landed by Cannonier. Straight on the chin of Israel Adesanya, right behind the ear of Israel Adesanya, big hooks, and Jared Cannonier is 5'11", with a 77.5-inch reach. Alex Pereira is a 6'4" man. Taller, if not the same height as Israel Adesanya. And Jan Blachowicz did better in the stand-up purely because he had longer arms as well and he was a little bit taller than some of the light heavyweight guys. So Alex Pereira, 6'4", glory kickboxing world champion. 80 inches of reach as well as Adesanya, something Adesanya has not been used to in his entire career so far. Blachowicz had a 78-inch reach. I do believe Pereira's going to land big shots, and in 4-ounce gloves, now that he's used to it and he's had some experience, I think he's going to get Israel Adesanya badly. I really do, and I think he's going to put him out in round 2. I'll score a round 2 KO here for Alex Pereira. That's what I think is going to happen. Alex Pereira, anyway, should I say. And if you look back in the Cannonier fight, at the start of the 3rd round, Israel Adesanya comes in, wide-stanced, throws a left straight to the chest of Jared Cannonier, and Cannonier slips that, lands a right hand on the ear of Israel Adesanya, and it lands well, and it rocks Adesanya over to his right-hand side. And when that happens, Cannonier follows up with a left hook, and it lands just under the chin on the neck area of Israel Adesanya. I made a video breaking this down. It is exactly the same combination that Alex Pereira landed on Israel Adesanya in their second kickboxing fight to KO him. A right hand off the shoulder onto the side of the head that knocked Israel Adesanya over, that lined him perfectly up for that left hook that Alex Pereira throws so much better than Jared Cannonier does, with way more reach and way more skill and way more power, and that's the shot that put him down. The same combination. We just saw Izzy get hit with it. And I feel as though Alex Pereira is going to get him out of there. He can play the game at range, and also Israel Adesanya, he's going to have a narrative that he's going to be aggressive, and he's not going to play the point fighting game. If he does play the point fighting game, he gives Pereira too many chances, Pereira too many chances, and he's going to get caught a bunch of times, and he will get KO'd in my opinion. Maybe he could outpoint him. I don't think it's a good chance of happening. Pereira will find that shot before 25 minutes are over. I do believe that massively. And I feel as though if he tries to be aggressive, which is where he had success in their rematch, when he went after Alex Pereira, and it shocked Pereira because Izzy's usually that point-striking guy, he can't be in 4-ounce gloves. He doesn't have the same power as Pereira, and if he becomes aggressive, Pereira's going to land on him. And he's going to go down. And you know for a fact, and this is another factor that I want to bring up as well, Pereira is in that man's head rent-free. I've heard like there's nowhere to run from Pereira about Israel Adesanya, but when I listen to his interviews on Fight Week, and I've listened to a lot of them now, and I saw him at the press conference, and I listened to what he had to say there as well, he's so non-confrontational about Israel. He's so calm. He barely mocks him. Let's all cheer for Adesanya in the cage after he won against Sean Strickland. Let's all cheer for Israel Adesanya, guys. Let's get this fight going. Whereas Adesanya, it's all like, roast him. Forget this guy. No one saw the first fight. No one's even seen the fight. You just remember the KO. And he's like sporadic and crazy and manic about it. Like, no one's even seen it. And at the end of his press conference after the fight, he was saying like, you media need to do your job. I could do your job. You could never do mine. Just remember that. I could do your job. And all of that type. It's like getting proper aggy about it. Like, dude, calm down. You lost to him. They are more than okay to bring that up to you. And I do believe, not just from Pereira saying stuff to Israel Adesanya, he might not have to say anything. He can just sit there and be calm and be stone-faced like he normally is. I believe if Israel Adesanya goes through a fight week with Alex Pereira, the media are going to annoy him beyond belief. Because every single question is going to relate to Pereira. And this was a fight week when only like 1 in 5 related to Pereira. And he still got worked up. Every single question is going to relate to Alex Pereira. Every single one of them. And it's going to agitate him beyond belief. And it's going to get him emotional going into the fight. Pereira has the mental advantage. The 4-ounce gloves benefit him as well because he's got way more power. He's got more reach than anyone at middleweight Adesanya has ever fought before. More reach than anyone in MMA that Adesanya has ever fought before. More power in MMA. Maybe Jan Blachowicz has a chance, but I really don't see that. I think Pereira throws shots way better and way more powerfully than Jan Blachowicz. But Blachowicz does have big power, but he weighs more than Pereira. So pound for pound, I'd say Pereira hits harder. For sure. He's faster. He's more technical. He's more accomplished. If Jared Cannonier can make it a competitive 5 rounds with you and find moments where he can land on you at 5'11", 77 inches of reach, 38 years of age, started combat sports at 27, 26, 25. Alex Pereira, the first Glory double champion in its history, who beat you before twice, who has the mental edge over you going into the fight and isn't just your victim in the build-up for you to bully because you've accomplished more than them and there's no logical reason for them to think they can win. It's going to bug Adesanya, and I think he's going to be able to beat Adesanya. I think this is the one. Every guy has their one. It happens. Maybe Israel Adesanya could grapple. That would be a shock, but I think his ego is beyond that. Okay, I think he wants to prove a point that he will outstrike Alex Pereira. I really do. I think he's going to make that a point. Maybe at some point in the fight he will shoot, but Alex Pereira is strong, and Israel Adesanya has shown no ability in offensive grappling in his entire career. Strickland had done, which is why I hedged a bit on that, because he opened as an underdog, and that's why I made that bet 50-50. I'm leaning towards Strickland. He may be able to offensively grapple. He's been doing it for 2 decades, but Strickland is an NPC, so he walked forward and took shots. I don't think Adesanya's going to grapple. I think if he is seen to grapple Pereira, he will know what that means in his own mind when he looks back at that win. I was scared to strike with Alex Pereira, so I had to grapple with him. And I think Pereira is too big, too strong, his height or taller, more powerful, same reach. And he also, and I want to mention this, I shouldn't have saved this till the end. You haven't seen the second fight. You haven't seen the last fight. Not one of you have done your job and watched it. I have. You had one moment of success where you were landing good shots. Tit for tat before then. Tit for tat in the first fight. It was close. Sure, you could have won on points, but they score pressure and aggression in the cage and ring generalship way stronger in kickboxing than they do in MMA. It's a big deal. Bullying someone is a big deal over there. So that's why they scored that for him. Even though maybe Israel Adesanya should have landed more shots and technically got it on points, they score things differently in kickboxing. So Alex Pereira, I do believe, is going to beat Israel Adesanya. Everyone has their one. And also, you haven't seen the fight. I did, and I did more than that. I researched the introduction of it and the build-up to it and what happened before and what were the conditions that the fight were taken on. Alex Pereira was injured on the sidelines in Glory. Israel Adesanya was training for another opponent. That opponent pulled out, and Alex Pereira stepped in after being off with an injury for a while on a week's notice. No, 10 days notice. And beat you. And I think if that gets brought up on fight week, that's going to annoy him even more. They weren't supposed to know that. They weren't supposed to know about that. They should have just thought that I was winning until I lost. Stepped in on 10 days notice. I think he's improved. I think Israel Adesanya maybe has stagnated. And I think if Robert Whittaker, and this is the truth on the scoring criteria of MMA, if Robert Whittaker can outland him effectively on the feet in their second fight in rounds 2, 4, and 5, Pereira can. So I give him an advantage in the points department as well. He's longer, rangier, better at kickboxing than all of them, stronger and more powerful, and the mental edge that he's going to have is going to lead Adesanya to play the outside game, try and be patient on the outside, and I think that Alex Pereira, unless Israel Adesanya shows up with a massive breast again, and he suddenly has crazy way more power, and more plates, more dates, has a fucking aneurysm on his channel making an hour-long video of, wow, super physiological levels of gynecomastia here, and all of that type of stuff. Unless that happens in the build-up, Alex Pereira sleeps in bad. Go and watch my second video on my channel. It is titled, I'll check the title right now for you guys because I have it open on my second channel here. It is titled, If Pereira Lands These Shots on Adesanya, Does He KO Him? And it's a 6.5 minute video that I'll put on the screen somewhere at the end. and in the comments below. And it's a video where I break down all of the clean punches that Cannonier landed on Adesanya. 38 years of age. Started combat sports at 26, 25 to feed his family and just get some money in. 5'11", 77-inch reach. If he can land them, what does the double champ at Glory do? That has a mental advantage over you. What if you're emotional going into the fight? Now everyone thinks you're boring. You've had a ton of fan backlash. Your Octagon interviews have a negative like to dislike ratio. He's going to see those comments. They're going to add into it as well. I think this is the time. I only picked against Israel Adesanya when he fought Costa. And I was stupid for doing that because I didn't know he'd get drunk the night before. Or whatever reason he had. And also, Izzy's performance against the other guys before, I think it was it Romero before Costa that he took on? It just left me in a bad taste. And I was thinking, okay, something's going on here. I'll try out Costa. But I haven't really picked against him since he's been champ. I think I'm picking against him this time. This is Jan Blachowicz, but taller, rangier, and better at striking. And with a mental advantage going in. No threat of a takedown. I don't think he needs it. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.